time we have?
We have more remote. 16.
Ben, Mr. Seawalker, can you do a check?
Yeah.
Is it on?
Yep. Check. Is it working? Welcome to the 904th meeting of the Board of Directors of MSAD number 27. Roll call, please.
Keith Jandro.
Here.
Isabel Lozier.
Here.
Abby Pooler.
Here.
Toby Jandro.
Here.
Leroy McKenzie.
Here.
Gary Sibley.
Here.
Sarah Ashley.
Here.
Adjustments to the agenda.
Chairman, we have one adjustment to the agenda under new business items for information. We're going to add a resignation of an educational technician one-on-one at FKES. I also want to acknowledge that this is the first meeting that we have our two student representatives. So everyone's going to be on their best behavior for our student reps. They're both juniors, Connor Pelletier and Sadie Pelletier. So welcome to our student representatives.
Very good. We have a motion to add under new business A, items for information, resignation. Add in item 1, resignation of Ed Tech one-on-one at FKES. Abigail in motion. Second. Leroy. Very good. Discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed? Adjustments to the agenda. 7.
I am finally done my work. Come on.
Very good. Thank you all for attending. I know many of you here have, who are here in person and who have not been able to attend, maybe you're on Zoom. A lot of you have emailed the board. I appreciate hearing from both sides of the masking debate. We obviously need to take your advice into consideration anytime we make a decision that affects what happens in these school buildings. That's part of the reason why we're here today, obviously, to provide you a time to provide face-to-face interaction with the board and a chance to make your feelings heard and provide valuable information or ask questions. This is not a public forum where we're going to debate with the school board. You can ask questions directed to the board chair. The school board asks questions. You can direct questions to the speaker at that time during public comment via the chair. We have probably about 42 people signed up for public comment. So as you can see, it's probably going to take a while to get through the public comment period. Therefore, I'm going to right away establish a 3-minute period for each speaker to say their piece, and respectfully give the mic back to Mr. Sarawal while we move on to the next speaker. There are a few signatures on here that are illegible. If I go over you or if I pass by your name, it's because I cannot read your signature. I'm almost certain whatever on either side of the issue, there's going to be repetition. Let's try to avoid repetition. And if you don't get to say your piece, but you have a neighbor next to you that you know could carry on that conversation, which you may have gotten cut off from, I would suggest you work together in maybe getting your point across to the board. At this time, I think everybody is well aware of what the board's policy is or requirement is for wearing masks in this building and inside of SAD 27 facilities. This was not taken, the decision to do so was not taken lightly. And I think we did it out of the best interest of students and staff. So, out of respect for the board of SAD 27 and the communities I represent, I kindly ask you to please wear a mask. If you don't already have a mask, we have masks available by the entryway. With that being said, I'd like to go ahead and carry on with the public comment period. First person to sign up for public comment is our own superintendent, Mr. Ben Shirwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 3 brief points to make. First 2 are in regards to our school reintegration, and the third is in regards to public participation. First, it's no secret there's a great divide in this country, in this state, in this community, and in this very gym regarding a great deal of many things. But in an effort to celebrate something we have in common as superintendent of schools, I want to thank each and every one of you for advocating for what you believe is best for children and the children of this community. Although I wish we would have some way for us to come to common ground, at least we will know that all of our efforts are based on what we believe is best for students. The fact that so many of you are here tonight for that reason makes me proud to serve you all in the best interest of our children. Second, I want you all to know that I, along with other superintendents across the state, are advocating for changes to be made to the current required quarantine period for close contacts. This is by far the #1 most disruptive requirement of the entire procedures we are required to follow from the main CBC, and we believe we are making our voices heard for the sake of your children's education. Finally, on behalf of Chairman Chandro and the rest of the board, I'd like to encourage everyone to review the brochure that has been created for tonight's meeting regarding policy BEDH, public participation at board meetings. Just as a reminder, board meetings are meetings held in public, they are not public meetings. The board reserves time to hear the public during this time, and the participation comes with a set of guidelines. We ask that everyone take the time to review the guidelines and the policy handout. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Ben. One other note of interest. I realize this is a heated issue, and some of us are at wit's end, but I just ask that we respect one another, try to watch our tone with one another. I realize some of us are fairly set in our ways, and we feel passionate about this issue. But in the end, we're here to serve the same purpose, and I would ask that you refrain from any profanity, as has been witnessed at previous meetings. We have children that may or may not be viewing these meetings from home. And I would ask, out of respect to those folks and the rest of yourselves, out of respect to each other, please respect one another. Our next speaker is Ms. Kelly Michaud.
If you could just stand and I'll bring the mic to you.
Hi, my name is Kelly Michaud, and I'm a mother of 2 students in this district, and I teach first grade at Brookton Elementary School. I would like to speak to the board tonight because after watching the last few board meetings, I was left feeling frustrated, and I wanted to share a teacher's perspective on how things are going, and more importantly, how the children are doing. By no means do I intend to speak for all teachers, however, I know that many of my colleagues share the same feelings that I have. Contrary to what some people think is a horrific year, we're actually doing well. The students were in school, happy and learning. They got to go to music, phys ed, and library. They celebrated holidays and birthdays and had Spirit Week and PJ Day and Popcorn Friday. They've been able to eat lunch in the cafeteria and play outside with their friends. My data shows me that every one of my students is making academic growth. We've read together and laughed together and learned together, and my time with them is precious. I know that I will never take for granted teaching with kids in front of me in person. Parents trust us every day to care for their children, to teach them, to comfort them if they're sick or hurt, and to protect them at all costs. I take that job very seriously, and that is why listening to the public participation portion of the last board meeting was like a punch in the gut. Listening to parents use the words like held hostage, and physically and mentally abused and traumatized was appalling. I can tell you with 100% certainty that if a child were being traumatized, myself and my colleagues would be the first people speaking up for them. Please trust me when I say that our children are okay. On the second day of school, I showed my class a picture of a traffic light. I explained that COVID is just like that traffic light. And right now the light is red, so we need to stop the germs from spreading around by wearing masks and washing our hands more and spreading out. I have never had children crying or asking why they have to wear a mask. I rarely have to give reminders to put their mask back over their nose or put it back on after lunch or recess. It has not changed the way that I teach or the way that they learn. Last week, the social studies lesson for our curriculum was called Principles of Democracy. One of the principles was the common good, and it was explained like this. In communities, we should think about what is best for others. What is best for everyone is the common good. This is the exact thing we are trying to practice in our communities right now to fight COVID. Masking is for the common good. If this is a lesson that 6-year-olds can understand and abide by, I think we all can. Another topic of discussion at the last meeting was rights. The question that came to my mind was, where do one person's rights stop and another's rights begin? I teach 14 little ones who don't always remember to cover their mouth and nose when they cough and sneeze. Their preferred method of wiping their nose is their sleeve. And they're still learning how and when to wash their hands. So in an environment like that, during a time of high community spread, having multiple children unmasked in my classroom is violating my rights to a safe work environment and violating the rights of the children whose parents wish to keep them safe while in school. The way that I see it is if you don't want your child to wear a mask at school and the school requires masking, you have the right to not send your child to school and school them at home. But you do not have the right to endanger the health and safety of others.
Thank you, Ms. Michaud. Next speaker is Heather Jondro, St. Francis.
I first want to start off by saying that right now I am one of those mothers being homeschooling my children, and it was a very tough decision to make because of the masks. And it was primarily because of the masks. There was really no other reason for me to keep my kids home besides them wearing a mask for 7 hours a day, inhaling their own germs. I have a quick question, I guess I don't know if I can say this or not, but I'm going to try. I had questions for our medical professionals that are here with us tonight, and I also have questions for our superintendent. I'm going to start with the question for the superintendent because I feel in my heart it's the deepest and most important question that I can ask as a parent right now. Can you please give us insight as to how much money MSAD 27 has received from the ESSER fund and what the requirements are in order to receive those funds?
So we have multiple ESSER funds that we received. The latest ESSER fund was $1.8 million, ESSER ARP. The one previous to that was $800,000, and that was ESSER 2. ESSER 1 was a lesser ESSER, I think it was like 400 or maybe 500,000. What was the second part of your question?
The requirements in order to receive those funds. There are 6 requirements.
Yeah, so we had to we had to check off assurances in order to receive those funds for safely operating schools, and I can see that you've seen those. already.
And in order to receive those funds, if masking doesn't happen, you don't receive those funds, correct?
If I did not check off the assurance on the application, I could not submit the application.
Okay, so this is a tough question for us, guys. Is money more important than our children's health? I'm sorry, I understand that we have an outbreak right now. However, those kids wearing those masks 5 days a week, 7 hours a day, is harming them also. My next question was for the health officials that are here. How many times a day are you actually supposed to change your masks? What's the recommendation in a hospital setting?
This is the Respiratory Symptom Clinic. My name is Dr. Hart, for those of you who don't know me. I'm the school health advisor. The answer is it depends, which is, so I'll have to be more elaborate, okay? So currently, because we do have plenty of masking supplies, when we were wearing surgical masks, and right now with patients, due to the high numbers, we're wearing N95, so that changes things. For surgical masks, you can keep it on until you need to change it for whatever reason. Maybe you go to lunch, maybe you take your coffee break, okay? Other than that, you just keep it on. In terms of the N95s, it depends if you use the hard ones or the soft ones. The soft ones, if you break the seal, you're supposed to put them on if you want to be protected. They would still do a good job of protecting other people. Lisa, do you have anything else to say?
No, we typically wear, like I wear my N95 all day now. I wear the type 1 because that's what fits my face. But basically, if you accidentally sneeze in your mask or have a runny nose, obviously you're going to change it. So again, it depends as needed. But my N95 usually lasts all day long, and I can wear it again.
In the beginning of the pandemic, we would use the same mask for days because they were short.
Does that answer your question, Ms. Jondro?
Partially. Thank you. An N95 would definitely be necessary for the jobs that you guys are doing right now, and I want to say I have the utmost respect for you guys, and I care about you tremendously also. The fact of the matter is that our kids are not wearing N95s in school, and they are sneezing and coughing inside their masks.
Ms. Jondro, we'll give you a few more seconds to respond and add to that response from our medical advisor.
Thank you. N95s are designed for airborne pathogens, and I'm pretty sure that I'm correct in that. My point is that a virus is 1/1000th of the size of a hair follicle. So I ask you, the masks that our children are actually wearing in schools are not N95s. Do you really believe that the masks are protecting them from what we're going through right now?
Dr. Hart?
I just want to add something. I'm a dental hygienist and I have been for 25 years. I work in the schools and I have for the past 20 years. When I come in and see
Ma'am, can I interrupt you for a second? We have a list of individuals, and you just get to the head of the line. Could you please refrain from interrupting Mrs. Jondro? She's got a few seconds left to finish up.
Anyways, my point is that whenever those little kids take off the mask, you cannot believe how wet they are and the snot that they have in their
Ma'am,
mask.
could you please state it? Thank you.
My point was made.
I already personally know the answer, so I'm good. My point is that the masks that our kids are wearing are not designed to protect a respiratory virus from going through them. And coronavirus is, in fact, a respiratory virus.
Very good, thank you, Mr. Jandro. We have Mr. Joey Kaleta, next.
Hello. So right now we're approaching this from two different angles. Some people here tell us that masking will reduce transmission, and these citizens behind me are here to say that we're okay accepting that risk over masking our children. They simply want to be able to decide for themselves. A lot of the parents have read the email from Dr. Hart sent to the school board citing an article published by the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences of the United States of America. It states overall direct evidence of efficacy of mask use is supportive but inconclusive. Since there are no random controlled trials, only one observational trials, and unclear evidence from other respiratory illnesses, we will need to look at a wider body of evidence. There are many important issues that need to be addressed. The study also states that there is a need to understand how masks can be used throughout the day, both children at school and adults. We have citizens of this community who have taken that information and stepped back to assess how it is impacting them and their children. They have seen no children from, and I'll repeat that, they have seen no children from MSAD 27 hospitalized, and new evidence published by the New England Journal of Medicine in November of this year has shown reinfection rates are extremely low. Some community members in Aroostook County have compared optional masking schools to mandatory masking. According to the mask mandators, we would expect there to be a significant spike in the optional masking schools. The sample shows minimal difference, and in some cases, the optional schools were actually doing better. So at the last meeting, Abby and Izzy, and I hate to point you out, and you did abstain from your vote, and I respect that. I would rather actually see you abstain than vote recklessly, based on X, Y, and Z. We are not saying here that we want no masks at all. We're saying that there's a middle ground here that could allow for optional masking. If COVID spikes again, the parents could ask their children to wear masks. It's that simple. You have been given you will be given an official petition signed by the parents and citizens of Fort Kent. They represent the citizens who took your survey, the one you created, and sent to the parents. And unfortunately, Mr. Jandro had mentioned at the last meeting that those parents could not be trusted, or the survey could not be trusted, because you could vote more than once. The organizational chart that I have here gives the highest position to the people. And I'm asking you this evening to honor the people of the petition. They are the citizens of Fort Kent. They have signed the petition, and they're tired of being abused.
Thank you for your time. Mr. Andrew Burden of Fort Kent.
Thank you. Just want to start off by saying that the folks who are against the mask policy, they could be right, the masks might not be.
Excuse me, Mr. Burden.
Yes.
Just quick point of order. You're here to address the board.
Okay, so please, sorry.
Take the board.
They
Thank
could
you.
be right. They could be right.
Thank you.
Given their due. Despite studies that show, for the majority, that masking does help prevent the spread from across the community. However, what we want to look at and to kind of take the emotion out of it a little bit is a way of making this decision. And what I have here is an example of an Eisenhower matrix, which President Eisenhower would use in making decisions when he was in office, and which some people may have seen examples with the Stephen Covey book, The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. What it shows is that we have two possibilities, that masks work or that they don't work, or that we keep the mask policy or we end the mask policy. So what is going to happen in those cases? So if masks don't work and we keep the mask policy, things remain the way they are. They're the status quo. We're dealing with this pandemic. It's obnoxious and nobody likes it. If we end the mask policy and masks don't work, we get the status quo. It's still an obnoxious system that we're having to deal with, and we're having to face the outcome of this pandemic. Or if we keep the mask policy and masks work, we get the status quo with the possibility of improvement, because it's obvious that that masks, that the usage of masks is spotty across the community and within the schools. But finally, if you look at, if we end the mask policy and masks do work, then we're going to have more time dealing with the pandemic. We're going to be dealing with more pain, more suffering, and higher costs. The only decision that results in anything that is worse than what we have now is to end the mask policy. All right? And I don't know of any other way to look at it as unemotionally as possible, but that's what it is. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Mr. Jacob Michaud, under new business, Town 410.
My name's Jacob Michaud. I want to thank you for allowing me to speak here tonight. I'm here on behalf of two really good students here, Dave Chenard Jr. and Derek Chenard. They ran a petition through the school to have the kids say whether they wanted optional or mandatory. The kids weren't pressured. They could sign it whether they wanted to or not. The totals are 134 optional and 7 mandatory. I'd just like to hand this to you guys so you can see yourselves. I am going to repeat something, Abby and Isabel. I'm sorry for the last meeting. I was here to pretty much give the board a warning as to what's coming, because these people mean business. That's all it was. I do want to say that there were some comments from some people in the community online that you don't deserve your seats because you didn't vote. You deserve your seats because you abstained from voting. Because I was not here to offer proof. I was merely here to offer a warning. And I want to applaud both of you. You did the right thing, and you deserve your seats, and I hope you keep them. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Mr. Michaud? Yes. We have one of the board members that would like you to repeat the warning that you made to the school board.
My warning was what's going on in the United States. School boards are being sued over this idiocy. Okay. And we don't need this. I apologize.
You're alluding to what you had mentioned at the previous meeting.
Yes, school boards are being sued over this.
I understood.
And we don't want this in this community.
Understood.
We don't need that type of backlash from everybody else in the news. You know, the news obviously isn't going to push this, but it's just to warn you that we don't need this here. Entire school boards are being sued, and these arguments are being allowed in court. Either individual school board members or entire school boards.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Michaud. I appreciate your time.
It was just for students in this building, in the high school, yes. They were given the option to vote yes for...
Two of the papers were put in stores for general...
I apologize. Yes, you'll see two of the papers, yes.
Just to get an idea on where people stand.
To get an idea of where the people stood in the surrounding communities. I apologize.
Very low impact, just to see where...
Yeah, they just hung them in the stores and people were able to sign them if they wanted. Okay.
Very good.
Are we good?
Thank you for your clarification.
Thank you.
The next name on the list at apologize. I believe it's Mr. Chenard from Eagle Lake. And if you just hold on one second, I have to have a question for the rest of the board. Just because Eagle Lake is not part of SAD 27, I believe what we're going to do is have to make a motion to allow you to speak under public comment. So do you have a motion to allow Mr. Chenard to speak?
I'd make a motion to allow Mr. Chenard to speak.
Mr. Sibley made the motion to accept, seconded by Mrs. Fuller. Any room for discussion?
Keith, may I suggest that if we're going to let folks from outside of town speak, we do a blanket motion so we don't have to waste any more time?
Noted. Very good. So are you amending the motion?
Well, only Gary can amend the motion. I can't amend the motion. Just make it so that
I'll amend the motion to allow people who attend from surrounding communities to SAD 27 speak.
Very good. Do we have a second to that motion? Mr. Sibley's motion, seconded by Mrs. Fuller. Very good. Any further discussion amongst the board? Seeing none, we're going to take a vote on the amended motion. All those in favor of the amended motion? Any opposed? Seeing none, we're now going to, we had a second on Mr. Sibley's original motion. It was Ms. Fuller. Any discussion on the original motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of allowing Mr. Chenard to speak? All in favor, none opposed? Very good. Mr. Chenard?
Yep, I've never done this before. I don't want to be here to do this, but I have kids. I'm a concerned parent, and they come home frustrated. So this is what I'm going to say here. Well, most of us have a bad source of information, or we have conflicting sources of information. You can go on one news channel, and you can get one perspective, and you can get completely opposite on the next one. So that makes us go look for separate information. And there's things out there that say we can't, that the masks are the silver bullet to fix this thing, and that's what's going to get things done. And then I can go on, if you want to look it up yourself on LifeSite, on DuckDuckGo if you'd like to, and it says 47 studies where masks are ineffective and 32 confirm negative effects. We don't talk about negative effects here of masks, and nobody here promotes it. You're going to sell a car, right? You're gonna sell all the good points of the car. You ain't gonna sell the other one. And where she said you make money doing this is ridiculous. Okay, now there anybody here that knows all the adverse and long-term effects of masking? Is there anybody here? It's all going to be opinion or professional opinion, and it's all still opinion. Okay. And why can you have sporting events all over the countryside with no masking, shoulder to shoulder, eating each other's hot dogs and drinking out each other's drinks, and they can do that, and our kids can't have the choice. I'm not telling anybody in here not to wear a mask. You have the choice to wear your mask. You have the choice to do anything you like to do, because this is America, right? And we have the right to tell our kids, and if something happens to our kids in 10 years from now, at least it was free will. They had the choice to make that. And the burden of proof is on you. If you put somebody in a position where you're going to pin them down and tell them what they got to do, or put them in jail, or so on and so forth, the burden of proof, not opinion, not speculation, proof. Show us the proof, and I will be the first one to stand up for masks if you can show me proof. End of story. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chenard. We heard it loud and clear. Next up, we have Tanya Bazin, Town of Fort Kent.
I'm going to yield my time to the next speaker.
Yeah.
Noted. Next speaker, we have Deanna Perry, Fort Kent.
I yield my time to the next speaker.
Next speaker, we have Mrs. Patty Michaud, Fort Kent.
I yield my time to Rebecca Fullerton.
Next speaker in order from Presque Isle. I presume Mr. Luke Rossignol, is that correct?
Yes.
And just briefly state your purpose and who you represent.
Thank you.
I'm here having outside folks speak there, so.
Yes, I'm obviously not from Fort Kent, I'm from Van Buren, but I'm here on behalf of a group of concerned citizens. We identify ourselves as Parents United for Student Health, and that's what these people are here trying to do. If I may approach, Mr. Chair, I have the petition that Mr. Willett had spoken about earlier, and I'd like to present it to the board.
Please come forward.
Thank you. The first thing I want to say is to thank the board. To thank those of us who do what I do know this is not easy. We know you're volunteering your time. We know you're trying to serve your community, and that's important. And I know from the people in my group that I represent, they respect that. We know this is not easy. I just want to highlight the parts of the petition that we think are important. First being, these are people who stood up and are willing not just to go on some social media or whatever, they're willing to put their name, number, and address down to stand up for what they believe. The petition that you have before you, Mr. Chair and members of this board, is really very simple. Put the power, leave the power regarding the children in your school where it belongs. They are parents. There's no one here trying to force anybody to do anything. All they're trying to do is have autonomy over the decisions regarding their children. And so I do think this is very important. I think the gentleman who spoke about lawsuits is on track. These things are happening. When the lawyer shows up, everybody thinks everybody wants a lawsuit. We're here to try to avoid that. We just want this board to make a decision that allows masks to be optional so that the most important people, the people who matter, can choose what to do with their children. And with that, I'll leave my time because there's much more important people here than me.
Thank you, Mr. Rossignol. Next name that I am able to read is Michelle Daigle, Fort Kent. Very good. Ms. Rebecca Overton, Fort Kent.
Hello, my name is Rebecca Overton, and I'm a mom of a 5-year-old pre-K student at Fort Kent Elementary School. I'm also an RN. I want to thank you all as school board members for wanting to do what's best for our children and our community. I also want to say that the way COVID is being handled is inhumane and not health promoting. It's not right to emphasize masking, social distancing, and experimental vaccination as the only means to combat a virus without ever mentioning health promotion as a way to naturally boost our immune systems. It's not right to test healthy children for an illness, especially when that test is known to give false positives. It's not right to keep healthy children home in quarantine. It's not right to keep healthy children out of school, period. It's not right to mandate masks, especially when we now have evidence in our community that they do not work. It's not right to hold experimental vaccine clinics in a non-medical facility. It's not right that I couldn't walk my child to his pre-K classroom on his first day of school, and that I can't have lunch with him at school or help his class with Christmas crafts. It's not right that my child can't exchange facial expressions with his teacher or his classmates, that he's missing out on learning fully about emotional intelligence and nonverbal communication at a crucial stage in his development. It's not right or healthy to live in fear. I want it to be the parents' choice for their children whether or not they should wear a mask. It is absolutely soul-crushing putting a mask on my healthy 5-year-old when I feel it does more harm than good. You say, why don't you homeschool? Because I have hope that things will change for the better in our schools. Because I trust the experts, the teachers, are doing their jobs well. because my son has had so many life-enriching and confidence-boosting experiences in these last few months at school, and we love and adore his wonderful teacher, Nadeau. I wanted to be the parents' choice for their healthy children, whether or not to quarantine as a close contact. My son has gone 3 weeks and counting without seeing his best friend due in part to close contact quarantines. He normally sees her at school and play dates every week. With the way COVID has been handled, I can understand why people are terrified. I refuse to live in fear. I can live courageously because I have taken responsibility for my own health. The same can be true for anyone who takes responsibility for their health. There are laws in place in Florida that ban school masking policies, ban school districts from placing healthy children in quarantine, ban educational institutions from mandating the COVID-19 vaccine, and they have one of the lowest COVID case rates in the nation. I'd also like to emphasize that there have been no hospitalizations due to COVID in the school district, and no child in Maine has died of COVID. Also, the only death in the district since the restriction for COVID began was due to suicide. I keep hearing how kids are resilient, but I'm concerned we're testing their resiliency after 20 months of restrictions. I see my Texas friends and family enjoying school, plays, and indoor sports mask-free. If it can happen there, I know it can happen here. I know you want what's best for the children. We as parents know what's best for our own children. Let us parents be the ones who decide what's best for our children. Give us the freedom to choose. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments over there. Next up, Ms. Claire Nichols.
Okay, so most of you all know me, my role in this community. I'm an educator, I'm a mom of students in this district. I am no longer a district employee, so I'm here as a parent with the perspective of an educator. This is my 12th year teaching and my 14th year, as of yesterday, as a mother. I have experience in both fields. It's hard, because I look around today and I see my friends on both sides of this line that has been drawn in the sand. And I respect and love people on both sides. But as a mom, I usually watch board meetings from the comfort of my couch until tonight. I'm here willingly wearing a mask because the superintendent of our schools asked me to. I wear a mask at work daily because I've been asked to. Wearing a mask to me isn't about what others think it is. Wearing a mask to me is about decency and respect for people who have weakened immune systems. I wear a mask because my dad is ill, and I'm friends with parents whose children have fought hard to conquer cancer, but may get taken out by an illness such as this. Now, I understand social media has changed our world and how we communicate. And though social media, I have seen the community members literally say that kids who have conquered cancer are not their children's problem. I'm really confused. I'm confused because the thing that matters to me is other safety and well-being. That's how I raise my kids, and that's how I teach my classes. When I watched the last board meeting, one of my children asked me why board members were not wearing masks when they were asking the children to. They asked me why board members weren't willing to stop the spread of something that could kill their grandfather. He didn't pick this illness. I'm not here to disrespect anyone. I'm just asking you all to think long and hard what it is you're standing for. Because I've been in situations where it was important to either stand up for people who can't stand up for themselves, and I will do that till the day I die. But education is an extremely fickle field right now. You guys are looking at educators that are on the brink. I can tell you that because I'm an educator. Never in my years have I questioned whether or not I can sustain this. And this is the first year that I say I cannot. And it's not because of masks, it's not because of COVID, it's not because of quarantining, it's because of the negativity that we are receiving on the end. It's seriously a slippery slope. I understand education is way different than any other field because people pay taxes to pay for our salary. And so I've been told, you pay taxes, I pay taxes so I can tell you what to teach. I won't stand for that. All of our teachers are phenomenal, and I'm grateful for every single educator in this district. If you've ever taught a day in your life, teaching from home doesn't count. Trust me, I've done both. Please reach out to your child's teacher directly, out of support and respect at their perspective. Then, fight the fight how you see fit, but understand that losing more teachers in this culture isn't the answer. We need every single educator we have. Talk to them, have conversations.
Thank you for
That's
your
all I
time.
ask.
Ms. Andrea was in 410. Very good. Next name I have on the list says Shondell, 410. Art? You deferred her time. Okay, very good. Next name that I can make out is Kayla Smith of New Canada. Very good. Time yielded to Joey Willett. Joey?
Can you hear me? All right. So again, I just want to point out something that's very important here. And I just want to point out also that there's obviously two schools of thought here. One is that the masks help reduce transmission. The other is that the parents here want the option to whether or not to mask their children. So the petition, I think, as you can tell, I passed around a organization chart. And I don't know if there's a school board member that wants to look at it, wants to tell the audience who is at the top of that organizational chart. Does anybody want to see that? Gary, do you have it? Do you know who's at the top?
At the very top, we have the people.
The people, exactly. So if you count all the people here tonight that are in favor of optional masking, I can guarantee that they outweigh the number of people who do not. In that petition, a lot of people ran around this town, going to their friends and family, asking them to sign an official petition that we submitted to the town clerk. She verified every single signature. It's a valid petition. It's been verified by the town clerk. It's been handed to the chair. So as far as I'm concerned, it should be a very, very simple decision for the board members tonight. You have the people of this community that have taken 2 surveys that, again, and I just want to remind everybody that the board essentially disregarded, and then had a 3rd meeting, and then when there was rarely anybody there, decided to go mandatory masking. So that was very, very upsetting to the citizens of this town. So they took it upon themselves to walk around this town, get a petition, get it to the town clerk, get it signed, and it doubles the amount of people in this room. Again, from a democracy perspective, I think it's very simple tonight. It's not a hard concept to grasp. The citizens are at the top of the organizational chart. And we are asking you to honor the requests of the citizens this evening. It's very simple. We signed a petition. We are asking you to do what we're asking you to go optional masking this evening. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Willett. McKenna Daigle, 410. Time yielded to Mr. Willett.
I'm done speaking.
Very good. Move on to the next speaker. Or McKenna Daigle, would you care to resume your slot in the rotation? No? Okay, very good. Lindsay Daigle, 410. Very good. Dr. Lisa Eno, 410. Time yielded. Michael C. Albert, 410.
My name is Michael Albert. I'm here with my wife Sherry. We're father and mother of 4 children. We're here on behalf, we still have 2 children in school. We're here primarily on behalf of our youngest child who is immune compromised. Most of you probably know she's had leukemia 4 times. So she's 12 now, but she survived because of community support, because of her help from her medical professionals. And one of the things that keeps her well is her immune system doesn't work normally anymore, so she relies on everyone around her to have a good immune system because she can't get immunized. So I guess we're here to thank the board for making a hard decision that's for the good of every child that's in this district, not just the well children. There are children, there are adults as well that are immune compromised that work in the school district, and they rely on you for help, for support. We don't have big voices. We're not out, pounding the streets trying to get signatures, but we're thanking you for making a decision on behalf of those that can't make a decision for themselves. So I guess that's all I have to say.
Thank you. I apologize if I mispronounced the next name. David Edinger, is that correct?
That's correct.
Very good. Dave?
I didn't come with anything prepared. I'm an ER physician at Northern Maine Medical Center. I was asked to speak by the other doctors. Just to let the community know what we're experiencing at the hospital, because I know that when you're not in it, you don't really have a good feel for what's going on. And at this point, we are reasonably overwhelmed at the hospital with COVID cases. We are seeing numbers that we have not seen at any time during the pandemic. In the beginning, when there was mandatory social distancing and masking, people were apart and the numbers were a lot lower. Once the CDC removed the mandate, people stopped wearing their masks, many, and the numbers just escalated. And my point here, I mean, other than the fact that we're overwhelmed, people that have problems that are not COVID related are not receiving the care they should be receiving because of all the time that's being spent on all these other patients. And, of course, we're seeing all the COVID patients. But the other point I want to make, and we're being given numbers by some of the folks about how no children have been hospitalized. Well, first of all, we have seen a lot of kids with COVID, but you're right. Children overall do not become sick, but they become a significant vector for the vulnerable adults and the older adults that become sick with COVID. So we have seen that. We have seen many children become ill and get their grandparents ill, and unfortunately, it's the vulnerable population that becomes sick, requires hospitalization, and in unfortunate circumstances, they pass away. So, you know, what I'd like the community know is that the hospital is really stressed right now, and it's affecting the working community. All the doctors are stressed. Nationwide, people are, they're retiring because of the stress that they're under, and it's a very difficult situation. So that's what I wanted to present.
Thank you, Dr. Edinger. Next up, Juliana Thibodeau, Fort Kent.
Hello, I'd like to say that I'm grateful we can gather here today with respect and patience and understanding. I like to believe we are all here with love for these children, that there aren't any ill intention of political gain or pockets being filled financially. We just learned. I personally don't have children in this school. I am blessed to be a homeschool mom, but I see that this matters to my community that I call home, so it's important to me. Before my husband and I had children, we wanted to be healthier. We knew that it would be vital because my body would be carrying, birthing, and sustaining our children. So health is important to us, and it should be for all of us, especially parents. If we're not trying to be better than yesterday, what are we doing today? When we heard about COVID in 2020, health health became our priority. So we made sure to intake fruits, vegetables, get good sleep, keep hydrated, because water is essential for life. Have physical activity, being outside. My children play outside 2 to 5 hours a day. I'm sharing this because recently my household contracted COVID, and we beat it in 2 days. We had very mild symptoms for 2 days. My son had a fever of 100 degrees, and he rested on the couch for the afternoon, but he was soon jumping on that couch the next day. My daughter literally sneezed it away. My baby, who's soon to be 2 years old, just wanted extra cuddles with his 100-degree fever, but that didn't stop him from his daily task of making a mess. I'm sharing this because I was in awe with how amazing their systems beat this virus, because we made sure to support their systems and boost their immunity. And that's what's so disheartening here, is that there hasn't been, well, you often hear the catchphrase and the feel-good sentences that this is in health's name, but there hasn't been any real mention of health at all. There could be pop-up vaccine clinics, but there's no pop-up multivitamin clinics or vitamin C boosts, no vitamin D supplements, no iron, no zinc, nothing is mentioned. No tests are done to see if they are deficient in nutrients. No letters are sent home to make sure that children are staying hydrated with water. No mandates for extended recess time. Do you know how vital physical activity is with this virus? Or how much power is in fresh air? Breathing fresh air literally boosts the immune system to destroy bacteria and viruses. It allows for the oxygen to travel adequately throughout the body. Fresh air allows for the lungs and the body to cleanse itself of viruses. But here, you're mandating that their respiratory system be blocked for up to 8 hours a day. That's why these parents are here, not because they're anti-maskers, but simply because they need the freedom to choose. They need real help for their children. And above all, they need faith to be given that our good Lord gave these children to them. He believes they have the authority to choose how their children are raised, how they are parented. Our Lord believes they are more than capable in deciding what's best for their children.
Thank you, Mrs. Nadeau, for your time.
You have extra time.
Very good. We have other people on.
Thank you. That power should have never been taken. It should have always remained in their hands. You're elected, you're hired to work for them, to do your diligence to be sure that these children are given real help. I'd like to share this thought with you. You have decided essentially to take help away from children, because it's been known, and I've experienced it for myself. Children are not in harm's way from this virus, but their health is being taken because of a hypothesis that it will keep the elders and others healthy. When in our society have we taken help from children to protect other people? It's wrong. If you can't without a doubt say these masks are safe short-term and long-term, if you can't without a doubt say they are effective in stopping anything, if you can't without a doubt say there are no short-term mental health risks or long-term mental health risks, and if you can't without a doubt say there are no short-term learning disabilities or long-term learning disabilities, then you have no base for truth and need to stop passing this ball around and end this mask mandate this evening. These parents don't want you to ban masks altogether because they aren't anti-maskers. They are simply needing the authority that should have never been taken from them. There is a beautiful light from the Lord in each of these children. And the longer you keep these mask mandates on their face, this cloth covering their face, you're dimming their light. And it will keep getting dimmer every single day you keep this mandate. It's time to end this mandate tonight. Thank you.
Good. Robin Tennant, or Kent. Very good. Next speaker we have via Zoom is Brent Stoliker.
Brent Stoliker, would you like to speak in public participation?
we have Christina and Jake Serio. Jake and Christina, are you there?
Peter, they're on the, oh, they're on the screen, they're not in the audience.
Thank you. They're off now.
Moving on, Eric Saucier.
Erica, would you like to speak?
You have to unmute her, Ben, I think. Okay. Ben, I think you have to unmute her on the.
Yeah, they can unmute themselves.
Oh, they can, okay.
Yeah, but she said yes at 6:30, so, no, she says no, thank you, okay? There's a no, thank you.
Okay. Let's see. Heather Houston.
Heather, would you like to speak?
Yeah, I just have one thing to say. And I guess it's just that I don't understand when matters of public health became a public opinion referendum. I feel that there's lots of science and research.
I'll save my time for someone else, thank you.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Heather.
There are lots of medical researchers and experts and people who study this for a living who know far more than me. And I guess I don't understand when this became a matter of public opinion. And I just also want to say that I'm tired of being told that I live in fear, and I like to think that I live in knowledge. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you, Ms. Houston. Mr. Sherwell, you have a question there?
Not a question, just that there's someone in the room.
Oh, thank you. Who's next on your list?
Next on the list, I believe, Carrie Keeble. Is that correct?
I see Lori Levac. Lori, would you like to speak? Public comment?
No, I'm just here to watch.
Okay, thank you. I have
Keith Panett.
Keith Panett. Keith, would you like to speak?
Ben, I think you have to unmute him.
Yeah, he can unmute himself.
Oh, okay. Next on the list, Marie Roy, I believe.
Marie, would you like to speak?
Yes, Ben, thank you very much.
Okay.
I just would like to say very quickly that as a teacher in this district, and as someone new to the community, I applaud those who are working so hard to keep our kids safe. They're working so hard. And listening to such a divided community really hurts my heart for the students that we serve. We need to think of them first. And right now, they see that we're divided. We need to find a way to unify, to keep them safe, and to stay together during this really difficult time. I think we all need to take a step back, take a deep breath, think about what's best for the kids, and make the right decision. I see kids every day in the classroom, not this week because we're remote, but when they're in the classroom, they're wearing their masks, they're learning happily, they're making great progress, and those masks are not an issue for them. We need to make sure we're not putting an adult masking problem on our students. They don't have a problem with the masks. It's helping to keep them safe, and it's helping to keep them in school. So we need to make sure that we're putting their needs first and doing what's best for them because they can't advocate for themselves. Thanks for letting me speak.
Thank you, Marie.
Thank you. Mr. Ned Rupert Nason, is that correct?
Ned, would you like to speak, or Patricia?
Yes, thank you. So
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. We are the parents of 2 children in Fort Kent Elementary School. We cannot be at that meeting tonight because one of our kids did bring COVID home from school. So we're all in quarantine. You know, I get it. Like, I get that kids may be excited to put masks on in the morning. My kids aren't always. They're also not always excited to put on pants. I make them put on pants to go to school. I'm okay with them putting on masks too. You know, masks do more to protect the people around you than to protect you. So when your kid wears a mask, it's protecting my kid. And when my kid wears a mask, it's protecting your kid. So optional masking endangers the kids who are wearing masks. Moreover, unless we want to put a big burden on our teachers of enforcing what parents want, it doesn't actually, optional masking isn't actually a parent choice. That's my 5-year-old deciding whether or not he's going to wear a mask. I know, I would love to think that my kids do exactly what I tell them to do when they leave the house. I know it's not so. I know what's going to happen if he has the choice about whether or not to wear a mask. And, you know, it is also true, as has been mentioned, that kids mostly don't get too sick, which is wonderful. But every one of us got sick when my son brought it home. Kids absolutely spread it, and it was a near miss on infecting my parents, who might have ended up back adding to the burden at the hospitals. You know, there are record high levels of spread in our community right now. We've had, almost a quarter of our student and teacher population at FKES have COVID in the last month. Like, there will be a time for us to end masking, but this isn't it. My kids just want to be in school, and the masks help keep kids safe, and they help reduce the quarantine requirements, keeping kids in school. Our current policy drops masks when community transmission drops, and that's appropriate. I look forward to the day when we don't all have to wear masks, but when we have the highest levels of transmission we have ever had is not the time to do it.
And I'd like to add a couple of points to that, and I'm speaking both as a concerned parent and also as a professional. I teach chemistry, environmental science, and biology at the university. I'm actually teaching from home right now because I am in isolation because one of my kids brought COVID home. The reality is that masks cut, when everybody wears them in a group, it cuts the transmission rate of COVID by about half, possibly more. Right now, we're in a public health emergency up here with the community spread reaching in excess of 130 cases per 10,000. That is putting a number of older people in the hospital. The reality is we got to get the community spread down. Keeping kids in masks in confined areas, that is going to decrease the amount of transmission in the community. That's going to help keep our elders and our grandparents and our loved ones healthy and alive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Any additional folks would like to speak on our Zoom meeting?
Is there anybody else on Zoom that would like to speak?
Very good. That ends our public comment period.
May I just make one comment?
I'm sorry. Could you please identify yourself and your town you reside in?
Hello, Jacob Robby, and I have one child in high school, and I don't want to repeat a whole lot of things, but everyone's acting as though the elementary school was some sort of great mask success. You all been masking our kids and the school's closed. It didn't work. So, I'm nothing special, but last year the teachers voted my kid special. He's on the citizenship plaque out there. I might not have been a good kid when I was younger, but I've turned out to be a pretty good parent. And I don't think there's one of you sitting up there that can tell me how to raise my kid better than I'm doing. I think we need to listen to the citizens. When we sit on council and people approach us with a petition, you have a responsibility to listen to that petition. A lot of this is hearsay and speculation and feelings, and we can't. I understand some of you say, and I feel for the Alberts, your child being immunocompromised. I get it, my father is as well. And he's worked in a lot of houses when people preaching this masking, and they're over his shoulder spitting on him. So I don't buy it all. I do about, well, these are my work boots. I do roughly 26,000 steps a day in these work boots. And when I'm asked to wear a mask on a job, one, I don't touch it once it's on my face. So it drops below my nose and it's really not working because my hands are dirty. And I'm not changing gloves to change a mask, to change gloves to change a mask. I clean toilets. Okay? I've seen a germ or two. I know a thing or two. Wash your hands, don't touch your face. We went to a clinic for a neurology appointment because I kind of got screwed up at the Northern Maine Medical Center, but that's another story. Medical professionals don't always know what they're doing. I guess I'll stop it at that. Listen to the petition, listen to the people. If not, there's an election coming up, you will vote.
Thank you, Mr. Robichaud.
Very good. Anybody else interested? I think we've gone beyond our threshold as far as our sign-up sheets and our remote attendees. Next order of business. I think this is what everybody's been waiting for, right? Under old business, Mr. Serwan?
I don't think there's much to say other than just giving everyone just a review of where we're at locally and then statewide. Locally, Aroostook County and statewide, just so we have information to consider. This is our current number of positive cases in our schools. We're looking at the bottom two rows. Fort Kent Elementary was at 45 a week ago. Now we're down to 14. And Fort Kent Community High School is at 5. So we're thankful that those numbers are dropping, and we're hopeful that that trend continues. And when looking at Aroostook County data, your Aroostook County cases are currently at a rate of 690.48 out of 10,000. So you can see how the trends have gone over time, up and down, but this latest month has been a rough one. And just for the purposes of the board, this is the number we've been using to identify what the high level was established at 100 cases. So we're currently at 690, and that was as of Tuesday, December 9. That was yesterday. And then for Maine data, I'd like to go to the case count here, and as of yesterday, new cases in Maine were at 1,278. So that's the Maine data. And I just share that with you just because that's the data points that we have. Aside from that, you have had numerous information from your health and medical advisors. So that's where we are.
Sibley, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Well, I'd like to make a motion to make masking optional at SAD 27 schools.
Mr. Sibley has made a motion to make optional masking within SAD 27 schools. Do we have a second?
I second that.
Seconded by Mr. McKenzie. Discussion? Mr. Sibley?
Yeah, a few things I'd say. One of the things One of the things that struck me listening to people speak out here tonight was both sides are talking about rights. Well, no one person's rights or no kid's rights are any more important than the others. We heard someone speak that said, you know, if you don't like the idea that we're having masking in school, then keep your kid home. We've received all kinds of emails in the last 48 hours, basically telling all of us optional people about how uncaring we are, and basically insinuating that our level of intelligence is lower than that of those who want masking. So, I guess if we had made the comment to any one of you that spoke about a child, well, just keep your kid home, then we'd be the devil. Why is that any different? Why are your rights more important than my kid's rights, Joey's, Jake's, anyone's? They all have rights. We all have our beliefs. Our rights are all the same. We're not asking to ban masking. We're simply asking you to respect our rights and allow us to make choices for our children. There are so many unknowns out there associated with COVID on both sides. There's no conclusive evidence on any of it. It's too new. Long-term effects, as you heard Mr. Sherrard talk about, or Ms. Overton, or any of them. We don't know what they are. Why do we have to have things forced upon our children if we do not want them to wear a mask? All we're asking for is equal rights, fair rights. I can't help but feel that we are way overstating and overreacting to this. I mean, we have pool testing, we have masks. We were basically not 100% promised, but we were pretty much promised if we had those, that we would still stay in school. We had to go remote last week because once we got our pool testing back, all of a sudden we find out that I think at least one classroom, all but 2 of the kids had COVID. But they didn't know that until we got the pool testing back. So how detrimental is it to our school? If we don't have symptoms, then, you know, this has got to come to an end at some point. So all we're asking for is to give us the right to send our kids to school as we see fit. If you want to wear a mask, you wear a mask. If you want to get vaccinated, get vaccinated. There's evidence of both ways that suggest we both could be right. So respect our rights until we have some conclusive evidence that says otherwise. Let us make our own choices. Thank you.
Mr. McKenzie?
I don't really have anything to say. I think that it's clear we all want what's best for our children and all of the children. I think we just differ on what that best is. I'm anxious for the day that we can pull back on some of these safety precautions, but I personally don't feel that now is the time that we can do that.
Well, first of all, I want to thank everybody who reached out by email, and there was quite a few. I'd like to thank everybody that's attended tonight, and especially those that have spoken up. I've found a way to do a lot of different research on my own, just because I got tired of this side and that side, and this side and that side, and who's right and who's wrong. And one thing that I came across is that science is not the truth. Science is about finding the truth. And there is nothing conclusive about mask wearing. Nothing. I've heard from both sides, and I respect both sides. I also respect the rights that I have and my wife have to put a mask on our child if we so desire. I don't wear a mask. If my wife wants to wear a mask, that's her choice. If my wife wants my daughter to wear a mask, that's her choice. But when she's with me, she doesn't wear a mask. That's our choice. And I feel that as a board, we need to not take away that choice. We should be giving the choice to the parents to enable them to make that decision for their children. And that's what I have to say.
I'd just like to say, Mr. Light said that it's a simple decision tonight. In all reality, it's not.
I'm sorry that I simplified it, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I know it's difficult.
Whenever I look at it, I represent a smaller portion. I would love to represent everyone. I can't make everyone happy. That's just not how it works. I think with masking, it's a difficult decision. As you guys know, your kids, even if they want to wear a mask, they want to wear a mask, they don't want to wear a mask. It's up to them. But for teachers to have to decide, like, yeah, we think that kids' parents want to, that would be difficult for them too. If we would have been optional masking right now, I think it probably would have been sooner. We would have been in remote learning, which is not what we want. I think you guys all agree on that. We don't want to be online.
No, but we were told no remote learning.
Point of order.
Noted. Ms. Lozay, do you have anything else to add?
No, I just want to add one final thing. Just the people who I represent, from what I've heard, that's what I'm making my vote off of. And I respect your decision, and I respect what you guys vote and what your representatives say.
I was hoping, Keith, we would hear from our medical person before we went to vote. Are we going to hear from her after this, or?
The board members will have time to discuss first, and then we'll also seek whatever information Dr. Hart has to provide us. She is our medical advisor.
Okay. I mean, I'm anxious to hear what she has to say. You know, that's where I'm coming from right now. We've hired a medical advisor. It's her job to do medical advising for us. She treats my children. She's a member of this community, and she's a doctor. I'm inclined to defer to the recommendations of the people I would go to if I were to have a heart attack tonight. With all due respect, Joey, you've got a great brisket, but I'm not going to your house if I have chest pain. That's where I'm coming from tonight. Is I hear the argument, and I guess I'm going to err on the side of caution, and that's how I want to approach this. I'm looking at what evidence we have. I've heard from parents on both sides.
Excuse me, the time for public comment is over. Please respect the speaker at this time.
And it seems as though the word that stands out in my mind today is threat. Threat. And that's the part that really worries me the most. It's not that I'm worried about being sued. They brought in their lawyer from Prescott. I'm not worried about being sued. I'm in court all the time. But I'm concerned that the first place you go when you're bumped up against something is to threaten. And that concerns me most of all. I moved here 13 years ago. Because I remembered my town being a place where I would never be stuck. Or if I needed a hand, people would help me. And a lot of you have actually received my help. A lot of you have come to see me and I've helped you for nothing. A lot of you owe me money and I never sent you a bill. Okay? Because
if we continue to have outbursts, one of these board members is going to make a motion to adjourn, and that's what's going to happen. We're going to end the meeting. So we can either respect the person that's speaking currently, or we can end the meeting. So we please continue.
what I'm saying is I thought I lived in a community that was capable of caring regardless of disagreements. And a community that was willing to talk and try to work things out. And instead, it doesn't appear as though that's entirely the case. And I'm disappointed. I'm frankly disappointed. For the first time in a long time, I don't know if I was stuck, if people would actually help me. And that's disconcerting to me. So, I move to adjourn this meeting.
Do we have a second? Do we have a second?
No second. And another thing is, it's just really troubling just how incredibly disrespectful folks are. I sat here and listened to you tonight, and last time I did say things I shouldn't have said, and I apologize to Ms. Taylor right now. But I'm trying to keep it civil. I've heard you out. It troubles me that you won't listen to me. Thank you.
I guess this has been I guess one of the hardest decision I have ever had to make. To look at people I care about on both sides and tell them that I don't know. The only thing I really know is that I'm not going to, walk into this gym or the library or anywhere we choose to have these meetings and have my heels dug in, have my choice made, listen to everyone speak, and just kind of sit here and disregard it. I'm not going to do that. I respect all of you. I hope that you can say that I've showed you politeness. Many of you on both sides have showed me unbelievable respect and patience and kindness, and I appreciate that because this is a hard position. I won't dig my heels in because I believe that everyone does have a voice and it deserves to be heard. That's why I read every single email that I got, which was over 50 today, and I do work. And I responded to all of the ones I got probably until about 2 o'clock because at some point I had to do my work and eat and all those things. Had I had the time, I would have responded to all of them, but I did read them all. And I think that one person whose comments really resonated with me the most were yours, Mr. Chenard, in that if we're looking for information, we can find it. If I want to know the great effects of masks and all that, I can look it up on a reputable source and find it. And if I want to know, what harm masks are doing or how ineffective they are, I can find a source for that too. So how are we really supposed to know? I don't know. I have questioned many things, I guess, politically and healthcare-wise and all those things, and every point that has been made tonight on both sides, there's an opposite too that makes just as much sense to me. So truthfully, I don't have any real beliefs that I can dig my heels in and say, this is exactly how I feel, and this is how I'm gonna, vote here going forward. All I can say is that I will listen to you. I called my town manager, I asked him about what our town council thought.
I came prepared this meeting to vote. I will vote. The only thing I think across the board that makes sense to me is that kids need to be in school. And I know that there are some parents that thought that going remote was the safest option, and I respect that that's their opinion. It's not my opinion. I did not vote to go remote. I believe that regardless, school is a safe space for all of our children. I know that there are health concerns, and I respect parents' choice to keep their kids home if that's how they choose on either side. But there are kids that aren't in safe homes. I know we've heard that. And that's what I have to believe. And I know that there's kids whose parents don't sit with them and do the remote learning, and so they fall behind. The only thing I can base my decisions off of are things I know. And what I know, according to our policies in the Department of Education, if a kid is exposed and it is not in the classroom and wearing a mask and all those things, they have to quarantine. And if someone in their family gets it, they have to quarantine for 20 days and all those things that we all know. So every vote that I make is to keep kids in school. I don't want to keep kids in masks longer than I think that the COVID poses a risk to them. I apologize. Like many of you, I don't public speak, so if that didn't make much sense, then that would be fine. I guess that's all I need to make for my point, is that my vote is to keep kids in school, because I think that parents work hard, and they can't always be there for their kids at home. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a few things I'd like to say before I seek the advice of our medical advisor. First thing I'd like to know is I'd like to thank all of you who showed up this evening. If I haven't already, thank you for your emails on both sides. I appreciate all of your input and your passion behind it. It's important. That's what this country's made of, is being able to express your opinion in a democratic fashion. One thing I did note along the way is we have a survey from people within town of Fort Kent. SAD 27 is comprised of multiple communities. Town of St. Francis being one which I represent. Town of St. John being another one which I represent. And part of the town of Fort Kent as well, on St. John Road. We also have the town of Wallagrass and the town of New Canada, which are also members of this SAD 27. I have yet to see a petition from those communities. Some of this made that those communities weren't brought into this discussion. They did not petition our school board. Nonetheless, my point's been made. The second point that I'd like to make is also about our staff. Not every staff member in this district is a spring chicken. Some of them have been around for a while. As you're all probably more than aware, we have a hard time recruiting new talent, be it a bus driver or a teacher. I think it's in our best interest to keep a safe workplace for those individuals. Nonetheless, that's pretty much all I have to add to this discussion. Dr. Hart?
Thanks. I don't want to mess up my statistics, so I might have to sit in order to play with my laptop. So just so you know, there was probably at least 10 medical professionals that wanted to come speak, but we received feedback after last meeting that we took over a bit too much and were repetitive. So I asked people to kind of leave it to me, because since I'm the advisor, I get to present the entirety of our opinion rather than a little bit at a time in 3-minute blocks. So for masking, Joey referenced an email that I had sent with a link to some evidence. That was an older email. The more recent email has a link to multiple studies, and I'll just tell you what they say briefly. During July through August, when Delta was the predominant strain circulating in the US, they did a study in Arizona showing school outbreaks associated with masking policies, and outbreaks there were 3.5 times more likely in schools without mask mandates. In Massachusetts, they did a study on 70 schools with over 33,000 students and found that masking reduced the attack rate for other students by a 6 times decrease, so 6-fold decrease in spread. The American Academy of Pediatrics lists evidence for masking and says that this newer evidence conclusively decreases the transmission of COVID in schools. And for that reason, they continue to recommend that schools have, in areas that there's substantial or high transmission, that universal indoor masking for every child and staff member 2 years and up. And the American Academy of Pediatrics, I don't know if anyone knows a lot of pediatricians. They're the sweetest, kindest, least worst paid medical professionals that have trouble paying back their student loans for medical school. They go out of their way to help children and have them as their first priority, and took very seriously the possible harms that masking could have. And they looked at the social emotional aspect, they looked at the language development aspect, and they looked at carbon dioxide levels and oxygen levels, and concluded that masks do not do serious harm to children. Whereas COVID, contrary to what was said earlier, there have been 2 children deaths in the state of Maine from COVID. There are currently 7 new hospitalizations of children across the state, and 3 are in the ICU. I don't want to wait until we see that here to decide it's a big deal. It is low numbers. We might let COVID run rampant and have the kids be okay. But I had a call from Dr. Hagenbach, who's not in this community. He's a pediatric cardiologist in Eastern Maine who's seeing a lot of myocarditis patients as a result of COVID in his practice. And those are referred from around Eastern Maine to his area. I know of 2 teenagers who have long COVID symptoms. One is about 8 months after his COVID infection, and the other is about nearly 12 months after his and still has chest pain and can't walk very far. So it's not just about death rate or hospitalization, because you're right, the numbers are low. There's a significant amount of teenagers who will have long COVID symptoms for months with decreased exercise tolerance and decreased ability to think, process, learn, and function. It's less for the littles, but it's still there. We have a 6-year-old in our practice who's still quite fatigued after 5 weeks after COVID. So those are the direct effects to kids, because that's a lot of the discussion. The other part of the discussion, public health-wise, I can tell you at least what we see locally. And one of our ER docs did speak to the high volumes we're seeing at the hospital. What I can say is initially, because masking isn't perfect, it will not 100% decrease COVID transmission. Obviously, we've seen that. But then if masking is so horrible, why is why do all these stats from studies done this year show that it decreases transmission substantially? No matter how well the school does with those masking protocols, if it comes in from the home and from the community, if we don't do our part to protect our kids while they're out in the community, it's going to make its way into schools. And what we saw from the hospital's positivity rate in terms of the testing that we see, we don't see it all. A lot of it goes to Walgreens, a lot of it's home testing. But the ones that we saw a substantial increase in the adults before the kids. And then once it was in the schools and started going through the schools, then we saw it coming home to families. And I know the young, healthy families are probably going to be okay. And those that have the means and the resources to take their vitamins and exercise and have great, healthy meals great. There's plenty of kids who don't have regular meals, and there's no way their parents can afford anything but processed carbs. And to discount those students because it's somehow not your problem is not what we're about. We're about taking care of the kids, making sure that we have a safe environment for them, and also for the teachers. As much as they can be vaccinated because they're old enough, some of them might be immunocompromised, some of them might be older, and vaccines help, but they're not perfect. You can still have breakthrough cases, you can still have death. It's much less, but it's still there. So, American Academy of Pediatrics, I'm going to have to go with what they say. They're the experts on children. They recommend universal masking, and they recommend it because, the CDC is going to care about everyone. They care about all the adults. And the AAP, they kind of don't. they care about kids. And they say for kids, universal masking.
Excuse me, can I have one comment to respond to that? Just one comment to respond to that, please.
I'm sorry, sir. If I open up to you, I have to open up to everybody. Zoom, the whole world.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, Mr. Schneider.
You
had your opportunity. Now it's our opportunity to listen to our medical advisors. Thank you.
I would make a motion I'd make a motion to allow Mr. Schneider to comment.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Can I comment?
We have to take a vote first. All those in favor of letting Mr. Schneider speak? Gary, Leroy, and Ms. Fuller, for. Isabel, for. All those against? Seeing none. Mr. Schneider.
All I want to say is she spent all that time and effort to prove why they're so good. She didn't go to the other side and find out what the drawbacks and the adverse effects are. There's none of that. That's my point exactly. Why can't she research that and give us the information on the drawbacks? Why can't we have that? Let's hear them. Let's hear them. Irritated face, nose, dizziness, it's just terrible.
All right, hold on. I gotta get some stats for you. They're happening in my head. I will say, before I find these stats for you and the answer to your question, that when this all started back in 2020 and we were scrambling to make policies, not all of us agreed on masks. We didn't know. And we had healthy discussions amongst the physicians about, oh, maybe if you touch your face, that's going to be a bigger deal. And maybe masks would be more of a problem because you touch your face more. But we looked at the evidence, and once we found the evidence that showed what it does, we were all in favor. So we didn't take this lightly. And when people sound flippant, I'm sorry, I try not to. But it's because we went through this, and we beat our heads against the wall, we worked way more hours than what the income, than normal, okay? Figuring this out last year. And so it's hard to not be short about it. We don't mean to, but that's probably why. So,
what I want to know is why it wasn't presented. Why wasn't that presented? You sold the good parts of the car,
okay.
You didn't sell the bad part.
I hear you. I was trying to get to the point, but I'm happy to talk about it. So, I don't have the... so, there is certainly, there's a 2 to 4% risk of facial irritation and acne. There are people who get migraines, so this is in adults, people who get migraines and headaches, sometimes a little bit more frequently, less than 2%. In children, in terms of the social, emotional, trying to understand and learn emotions and speech, they found 0 harm after looking at that. In terms of carbon dioxide and oxygen, for kids, they didn't find any changes. For adults, if you have COPD over time, it might be a little bit of an issue for carbon dioxide, but for everyone else, it was okay. For asthmatics, they tend to feel a little bit more short of breath, but they don't have any changes in their CO2 or O2 level. It's a sensation that they have.
Everybody mentioned frustration and anxiety, and when you tell somebody to do something that they don't want to do, they automatically get frustrated, and they can't focus on what they're doing. If you tell me to sit in this chair, and I don't want to sit in this chair, I would be mad that I'm in this chair, that's going to affect my...
So students have to do that all day, being told to do things that they don't necessarily want to do. That's part of school.
To me, I know there's a pros and cons list. If people have a right to vote on, it should not be voted. When you've got a pro and no con, it shouldn't be voted upon. Period. And it shouldn't be implemented.
So a lot of people talked about choice. So this is a problem for choice on both sides of the argument. So people who want to allow their child not to wear a mask, if there's mandatory masking, they have the opportunity to keep the kids home. And the same is true in reverse. If you have optional masking, then the people who want their kids masked and want them to be protected from the other children breathing on them also have the right to keep them at home. So those are equal problems in terms of choice. It's a choice either way. What the studies have shown is that masks protect the people around the user. So I wear my mask to protect other people. So it is not like the N95, I get that point. That N95 is the only thing that protects me. My mask right now doesn't protect me very much, maybe a little bit. It protects everyone around me in case I'm an asymptomatic transmitter. And I happily wear my mask in the grocery store because I don't want to give anybody anything.
If it doesn't protect you, how does it protect them?
Right.
We have a motion on the floor. I'm going to have to stop the public comment. We've already had our public comment period. That was the time to present medical evidence. I believe we've heard from several professionals on both sides. So at this time, we already have a motion and a second. All those in favor of making masking optional within the MSAD 27 facilities? Show of hands. We have Mr. Gary Sibley and Mr. Leroy McKenzie in favor. All those against? Motion fails. Next order of business. MSAD 27 board planning discussion. The recurring agenda.
And I just wanted to give the board opportunity to continue to have discussions about for future planning. Our last discussion was specific to Valley Unified, and wanted to just offer that again to the board.
I'd like to make a motion for like a 5-minute recess or 3-minute recess at the room clear.
We have a motion for a 5-minute recess. Do we have a second? Second by Abigail. All in favor?
Can I ask a question?
Any opposed?
Are we going to be discussing, maybe this is later.
We're currently in the middle of a 5-minute recess.
Are we going to be discussing remote learning and everything that entails as well? Because
That was the last part, but I think we can go back to that. Yeah, we can go back.
okay, thank you.
We've had a student rep at our table that I completely left you out during our period of discussion, and I apologize. Won't happen again.
I told them, given the amount of attention, they were okay to just watch and observe tonight, so I think they were good with that.
Next up, board planning discussion.
I do believe that Abby wanted to continue a couple more questions with the school reintegration plan.
I had a couple parents reach out to me about things that I guess I wasn't aware of. I wasn't aware that when we went remote that children were still able to come to school and remote learn with EdTech. I know that that was something that was in practice last year. And I do see all the benefits of it, but I feel like if school was unsafe for others' children to be in, I don't know that it was safe for teachers' children to be here as well. I had other people raise concerns, you know, all parents were faced with having to find childcare or grandparents or whoever to take their kids on during this remote learning week. Not that I think it's easy for teachers to do that, but I think when it's a week, I think that they should have to find childcare and such elsewhere, just like all our other parents, to be honest with you. Last year, it was for the long haul. Remote learning was months and months and months. This was, so I guess that was just a concern that a lot of people had that I thought should be mentioned.
So, one thing that we had discussed last year was the fact that this was a benefit that the employer was offering their employees. Our fear is always that, and we talked about that, and I know I went in Mr. Nadeau's office and Mr. Anderson was there, and we outlined, you know, if we go remote, these are the things we're going to have to answer to, and that was one of those. But then we're faced with the fact that if our teachers don't have someone for their children, and they call in sick because they have no daycare or they take their EPL time, then there will be nobody for anyone's children. So it's kind of weighing what we have to do as an employer to ensure that our employees can continue to do their work. But I understand how citizens will be concerned with how that plays out as well. With regards to the health and safety, I mean, if you go see how those kids are spread out right now, I mean, they're socially distanced beyond socially distanced. They don't have the advantage of going to see their teachers. One thing that we said, we're not going to make it advantageous for our employees' children. So yes, we do have ed techs there monitoring, but we don't have one-on-one support. We don't have those children allowed to go in their teachers' classrooms to talk to their teachers. We're trying to treat it as if they're just at school doing their own remote plan, and it's an employee perk that we're offering so that we can keep school running. But I do understand the concern. It's a tough call.
So I guess a side concern to that, don't know what the validity is of it, but I was also told that during other Zoom classes, parents observed students in the school unmasked participating in remote learning.
I've actually received that same complaint from 2 different parents. And another thing I've heard repeatedly is, if Fort Kent Elementary School is such a hotbed of COVID, why is anyone in the school, why isn't it being completely disinfected and cleaned? I mean, that was our protocol last year at the start of this whole thing.
Peter, do you want to address the cleaning solution that we have at school?
What we've done at the school, we ended up having a problem with the, basically, it's called the electrostatic sprayers that we were using to clean our buildings. We were allowed to be able to use them throughout all of the school year last year. And this year they've been holding us back because they're saying that you need to have a pesticide applicator license in order to be able to use any powered equipment to disinfect and spray any of the disinfectants down. What we've done in order to curb that is that we've actually, our custodial staff is using spray bottles, as you would speak like this, and also pump bottles that are sprayed, throughout the area to disinfect. We're using the same chemicals that we were using that are approved to affect the COVID virus today as we were last year. We spoke today about what did we do so different, in order to try to find that Fort Kent Elementary School numbers spiked, and there's really a few things that had happened, and that was probably one of my greatest concerns, was the fact that we could not use those sprayers, which was actually developing good coverage underneath everything. If you'd see one of these electrostatic sprayers work, you would actually see what the droplets do and how they cover everything with a very light mist. But through the state of Maine and through the offices of pesticide control, we cannot use it in a public building unless we're actually licensed. And the licensing process is a very long procedure in order to be able to have anybody in our district to be licensed. So we are mandated to have a person on our staff. It's a pesticide is what they're calling it. It's just a way to be able to ensure different licensing and different procedures. And that's, I see it in your face, and I know you're upset, not as much as I am, because we can't use the equipment.
Well, no, I was going to ask you what the difference would be with the high school here. Why aren't we seeing that is indeed the case, and what would be the difference here?
I think we're seeing a lot of difference in the high school with the lower numbers here because we have a higher number of people that have had the opportunity to be vaccinated. We don't have that same opportunity at the elementary school.
We have 66% of our student body vaccinated.
I think that sends a clear message. But that's what I've been able to see on the custodial staff as to what we can do different, because we're still continuing to do our deep cleaning. We're still continuing to spray all of our high-touch areas. We're still doing this repetitively all the time throughout the day. Our custodial staff are working diligently at making sure that the buildings are safe and that the buildings are clean. We're using a lot of the same chemicals that we've been using to spray. The only thing that we're doing different is the fact that we cannot use those electrostatic sprayers. So until we can get petitioned to a point where we can, through the Department of Education, we would go back to them, and I think it would help us if that's a choice that we would be able to make.
Thank you, Peter. So, getting back to that point, if the board does not want or wants us to consider not allowing our employees' children after this, it's going to entirely change the decision-making factor of how we proceed. And I will tell you all, I'm one that tries to do my best to convey as much as I can to you. This decision-making for this sucks, and there's no other word I can use for it, because as you're seeing these cases climb, and part of our decision-making process is listening to people who are saying, but no one's getting really sick. The other side is saying, but it's really bad, and we can't control it. A decision has to be made. And I will tell you all that I was the last stop before we decided to go remote, because I had everyone urging me, let's go remote, and I was continually saying no until we had a point where A wing became a spread to B wing, became a spread to C wing, and when we had 10% of our students out with COVID, and then we had another almost 10% out on required quarantine, we had to make a decision. If our teachers' children do not have the option to have remote learning on site, I'll probably say no from now on, because we won't be able to manage school without our teachers available. So, if that's helpful.
Still have the issue of kids being seen without masks.
That is an issue, and I will definitely look into that. That is an issue.
And that also leads to something else I'd like to know is, have we had to, I'm looking for the right term here, have we had to bring staff or individuals aside and advise them that they're not following correct protocol, And if they continue to not follow protocols such as requiring mask wearing or having extended mask breaks in the classroom, that, you know, there's got to be repercussions here for not following the protocol. We get all this money, we've gone to all this effort, we've had how many votes, and if we're not going to follow the procedure, it's useless. So, and hold on, I'm not done yet. You know, I've read reports of where, not in this area, but other areas where the teacher decided, well, I need my children to see my face. I'm going to take my mask off and read to these children. Not long thereafter, guess what happened in that classroom? An outbreak. I'm not saying that's what happened here, but I want to make damn sure that people are following the policies that we've argued and lost sleep over, and we can't be doing this for nothing.
Administrators, to your knowledge, are any staff blatantly going against our mandates and policies that we have in place?
I haven't seen that in our school here, and you know, we're in the halls all the time. I've got cameras all over, and
if we hold staff to the same standard. If we see them with their masks down on their nose, we let them know, you know, tell them it's not acceptable, that you have to be the role model for the kids. If we expect the kids to do it, then we all have to, you know, do the same. So,
not to my knowledge. That doesn't go to say that masks don't fall underneath the nose and reminders are there, but blatantly, no.
So going back to the outbreak at the elementary school, do we have enough data to say, you know what, it started in this classroom, it started here, and I'm not looking to single anybody out. I just want to know, can we follow the data throughout the classroom, from one to the other, from one wing to the other? I'm just curious as to how we ended up as number one out of 577 schools for the most cases in the past 30 days.
I have a theory about that, but I'm not, you know, a scientist, so I'm not going to elude it. But okay, getting to your point, Nurse Rebecca, are you here? Is Nurse Rebecca here? No.
I can answer that.
Okay.
So if we look at probably the first 13 or 14 cases with this past outbreak, they came in all in different spots in the school. So in different classrooms. So it wasn't like we had a bunch come into one classroom all at once and then spread from there. It really came in from all different spots. And from there, we started seeing spread within the school.
Have we narrowed down the data to where we could say, you know what, we get X percentage may have been in from the community, X percentage, this percentage over here, we know is most likely school spread?
The overwhelming spreader is the home. So we're seeing entire families go down. So where you have a family of 3, 4, 5 kids, they're all going out, both on required quarantine and COVID infection. As far as school spread, early on we saw more of it in A wing, and that's because the little ones, it's a little bit harder to manage their impulse. So we did see a little bit more, but to say that we had massive school-wide spread, I don't think that's the case. I think we had community spread that led to family spread that came into school, and then we saw some school spread.
Then in regards to quarantine, is there any talk in your circles above of changing the quarantining or maybe adopting the test to stay?
Every superintendent, I think, is in unison and has submitted their concern of the required quarantine period, especially now that vaccinations are available to every student 5 and above. This required quarantine period has to end or at least be significantly reduced. So that is something that we've been told. There's going to be an update to the SOP coming out right after Christmas break. And we've been told that the required quarantine is going to be one of the changes. We've also been told that they are examining test to stay from other states that are adopted that, and that's something also they're looking at. So both, yes. Yeah.
So we got our youngest vaccinated as soon as we could the first time, and
She was only able to get the second one yesterday. So I think we're probably looking at least another month. And we're pretty assertive. We had the ability to go run around, but it was really hard to get a juvenile one in town here. So putting that up there. Couple other things. Josh talked to me about if we were to go to a, well, you want to share what you were saying?
Yeah, that's fine. So with the optional masking, I just want to let the board know that if community high school does go to optional masking, that does not change anything for athletics. Players and fans will still be required to wear a mask during the basketball games that happen within this gym until every school in Aroostook County is maskless. Now, we have schools in Aroostook County that are maskless. Katahdin is an example of that. When a team travels to Katahdin to play them, Katahdin will be wearing a mask, and their fans will be wearing masks as well. So with that being said, if we decide to go optional masking, our choices will be to wear the mask as fans and players, have no fans in here and the players will still be able to play, or other teams will not come here and play at community high school. So I just wanted to make that note.
I thought that was worth the group hearing, but I guess Ben, I reached out to you about this when our young people are in quarantine. I know we chatted a little bit about the possibility of having somebody act as a coordinator to kind of help keep them on top of their schoolwork. Hopefully the quarantine period will shorten, but until that happens, I mean, what can we do to help with that?
So it's something that we talked with our administrators last meeting, and we had some different bullet points of different ideas to address it. It obviously became very apparent that a solution at the middle high school is not going to work as well at the elementary school. So we've tasked our administrators with talking with their folks, with their teachers. I think the less we're making mandates top down and the more we're having them come back to us with what they think they can manage. So we're currently in the process of developing something. We know that the required quarantine is the #1 concern right now because it's keeping a lot of kids out of school.
Yeah, and I've heard from parents that a lot more teachers, especially in the middle high school, are allowing students to zoom in, which wasn't always the case. And I've heard from a number of parents that their kids are happy to at least be able to zoom in. I had one young woman who had COVID, and she was just happy to be able to participate even though she wasn't there.
Right.
So I think that was an improvement.
Yeah, a little bit more manageable for that solution at the middle high school, a little bit more challenging at the elementary school, especially the younger grades, but we're going to come up with something that works for sure for the elementary.
The last question I'd have would be, the decision, while I understand the decision to go remote was not an easy one, I guess going forward, I'd be curious, what do you think we can do to give more lead time?
Don't know.
Because that was the biggest complaint I got as a board member. It's like, an hour and a half, are you kidding me? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know.
It all comes down to, again, how are you going to prepare your staff to deliver that instruction? So when we were looking at that, we had I don't want to say advantage, but we had the opportunity of completing that day as a half day. It counts as a day. And then giving our staff the afternoon to plan for the following day. So we didn't miss a student day. Every day has been counted because we don't have waivers this year. So if we skip a day, it gets tacked on at the end of the year. So I'd like to say we could have better lead time, but we're building the airplane as it's happening, as we're flying it, and we're just trying to do the best that we can. But I understand that's a concern.
What was the most alarming? Leroy, go ahead.
Before you move on, I have something. Go ahead and finish.
Yep. After meeting with the main CDC and our medical advisor and our medical staff, was there something that really just stood out and said, hey, well,
yeah,
this is it. I made my decision.
The main CDC, so standing out is I guess, an interesting, the CDC was this guy named, what was his name? Tom, let's say his name was Tom. Tom had a gauge in one ear and a neck tattoo, I think. He had a Texas accent, so I think he was outsourced from somewhere else, and did not offer anything. It's very apparent that the Maine CDC is just there to ask us the questions to check the boxes. Are you universal masking? Are you this? Are you that? So that was less than helpful. So after we got done that meeting, and now we were faced with the fact that we're not going to get any recommendation from an outside agency. We're going to have to make our own decisions. We spoke as a team and we said, let's see what our pool testing results give us tomorrow morning. We knew that pool testing was coming. We were currently at that time, we were at 44 students out on COVID, and then we got the announcement that night and the following morning that we had 10 positive pools. And then when they started testing and we started to see positivity, that was for us. We knew we were faced with something that we could stop, because we had been trying. Mr. Nadeau and Mr. Anderson had been making changes over the past few weeks of increasing that distance at lunch, going out with the students at recess and talking to them about not touching each other, really doing a good job. I observed both gentlemen, lining kids up after lunch and 6 feet. They have the dots on the floor and the wall, and so they were really doing a good job at really enhancing those mitigation strategies. But 10 positive pools for us was a great concern. So that for us was the tipping point.
So we know last year we had the Department of Education telling us what to do. This year we don't have that. Is there anything in this reintegration plan that you could say, you know what, my board has told me this is the threshold, and would that help you if there was such a threshold? I understand as an administrator you want the flexibility, but also, we're also here to share that with you,
yep,
if need be.
I think we've established a threshold with this case. It was 10%. If that's too low, 10% of Fort Kent Elementary is roughly 44 kids, 45 kids. Here at CHS, it would be about